Goodness, geez, what a day. Actually, the day was going pretty well. The day was going pretty well until I realized that for some reason my camera wasn't picking up my microphone, and now I've had to make an entire plan with using my old phone to record my voice, and God willing, I'll be able to sync it later, even though it'll probably end up being at least an hour of footage. That aside, I'm Fix. This is 2020 Fix. Welcome. This week, all over at least my social media feed, was Alex Hormozi and this interview that he did with Tony Robbins. And I thought it was fascinating. I have read all three Alex Hormozi books, the $100 million Leads, $100 million Office, and I think the other one is $100 million Money Models. I watch him and Layla's videos all the time. I love them as a couple. I love them as business partners. I have done Tony Robbins' coaching program for 18 months. Great books, great teachers. And so they had this interview together that kind of blew up the internet. And it's because, you see these two hunky, super masculine men, right? Hopefully healthy masculine men having this sit-down conversation. And I did not expect it to go in the direction that it went, which was very vulnerable, especially for Alex's side. I think we've all seen Tony Robbins be vulnerable, but I don't think we've ever seen Alex Hormozi being vulnerable. And that is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about getting from your head into your heart. Because when I started listening to Alex Hormozi and consuming his content, really was about push as much as you can, find something worth suffering for, and just pound your fist into the ground until it bleeds, and then you're going to make a ton of money, right? We're all educated into this paradigm that the harder you work, the more the world rewards you for that work. But then you look around, and this is something that I have thought about a lot over the years. And the people who work the most hard, like if you're looking at physical labor or even brain labor, right? The people who are working the hardest are the poorest in the world. That's just objective fact. So clearly hard work wasn't everything. But this is sort of that masculine pushing model that Alex Hormozi dictates, that he shares with all of his students. And I think, at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, especially when I was sitting with literally mountains of gloves, towering gloves that I needed to now get off my hands and sell, I got into panic mode, and I'm consuming this hustle pornography, trying to figure out how I'm going to sell this product. And, the top of the Google search shows your Alex Hormozi, shows your Jason Wojos, which I also worked with directly, this hustle. And some of the principles are sound, but that literally got me sick. So I've always felt that Hormozi was great in the tactical ways he was teaching things, but there was a way that he communicated his ideas and also his instruction that kind of irritated my spirit a little bit. And I think I thought I was lazy. I thought that was resistance on my part, not wanting to work hard, which is bullshit because I've worked hard before. I've worked hard all my life. And that got me to a place, but certainly not the places that I have in me to go, that I know I will get to, for example, just some of the best things that I've done were probably some of the most effortless things that I did. I was just in flow. But something about it irritated my spirit, and I just chalked it up to me being lazy. But I think there's multiple factors that I'll get into in the rest of this video that contributed, I think, a little bit to the resistance. Well, the first one was actually that I hear what you're saying in terms of success with marketing and sales psychology, which he is excellent at. However, I didn't like the idea of find something to suffer for. and then just suffer for it, because your words are really powerful. And if you are, and this is what Tony was saying to him, if you are saying that you need to find something to suffer for, you're going to find something to suffer for, and you're going to suffer. And I don't want that. Like, I think I've suffered enough. I appreciate that his perspective is coming from an anger place, and sometimes we need that contrast, right? What Abraham Hicks says, we have contrast in our lives, negative situations that we now know what we do not want, and we use that as a jumping off point to show us what we do want. And I don't think those vibrations of what you do want and what you don't want can exist at the same time. But sometimes to know what you do want, you need the contrast. But you can't get there, or at least even if you do get there, you can't enjoy it and feel the satisfaction of having it if you're still dwelling in the contrast, which is fundamentally what was irritating my spirit about Hormozi's approach. And like, I did the whole thing. I was on those, remember those live Zoom calls he used to have with all the audience members sort of projected in this gigantic multi-screen, everyone sort of like these little dots in his audience. I was one of those. I was that girl. I ordered the book. I pre-ordered that book. I read it, got some of it, tried to implement, but boy, did I stress myself out. When Tony was just like, what are you talking about? Fuck suffering. Fuck suffering. I was just like, oh, okay. So I wasn't crazy. And also, I wasn't lazy. And it was, for me, a beautiful thing to experience. It's nice to be validated. Of course, that's great. But I'm a fan of Alex, and I want him to get whatever he wanted to get out of this interview with Tony Robbins. And to see the softening on his face was just, I don't know. It was just like, oh, I get it. I can have compassion for that guy. My heart can open up for that guy because he's human. And he is seeking God. But, I think Tony is an excellent coach because he knows that. But he also knows that if he talked about eternity and if he talked about God and that being what Alex is actually looking for, Alex would probably shut the fuck down, right? I think we all know that. But it was wonderful to see Alex's heart open up. So to get from the head to the heart. In Dr. Joe's work, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, he does talk about brain and heart coherence a lot and backs some of his teachings up with studies from the Heart Math Institute. And basically what I learned from Dr. Joe at the week-long advanced retreat is that there are more neural connections, as in basically brain cells, neurons. There are more neural connections between the brain and the heart than any other part of the body. Your gut also has a lot of neural activity as well. Better when you have brain and heart coherence. And it's basically because the heart creates an electromagnetic field as it pumps blood around your body. So charged particles, I believe, when you move them, create an electromagnetic field. And so when your heart is beating coherently, you actually create a Wi-Fi signal. And with some quantum theory justification, your heart basically becomes a magnet in the quantum field to the things that your heart desires. But that's not the point of this conversation. Well, I suppose it is, because it is getting from that thinking brain to your feeling center for overall well-being and for you to be an actual success. I tried the thinking thing. I tried the being in my head thing. I tried it pretty much my whole life. I'd say I was in my head, even in acting school, which one could argue is more of a heart-centered environment. But I remember my teachers telling me all the time, get out of your own way. You're in your own head. I did a an Instagram post recently where I showed some snippets of me at acting school. And I remember a lot of the lessons, especially when it came to comedy, about how I just overthunk everything. I was so in my head. Comedy became like this impossible thing. And you know, when I got it, I literally got it on my last day. And it's because I stopped thinking. When I was in my head and still doing business, I have a container full of biodegradable medical gloves because that was my business at the time. It's the end of 2023, and I haven't done the research to to know who I'm going to sell it to. So I was in poop. I was like in deep shit, okay? And all I knew was that maybe I'd heard someone say something about selling things using paid ads. So I remember just sitting there and trying to figure out this paid ad stuff. I just remember my back just tensing up so badly because I was like all in here. The only thing that sort of freed me that time was that I had my spiritual awakening on December 6th, 2023. And I'll talk about that when I talk about awareness, probably next week. But I had a similar experience when I was trying to figure out why Shopify hadn't paid me. I was in North Carolina and money's not coming in. I'm sleeping basically on my friend's kid's bed. And I manifested like this really terrible like pain in my back. And I know it gets worse. I know people get sick because of this. And with the businesses, yes, plural, with the businesses that I'm building now, I'm actively fighting against this tendency that I have to fight my way through everything. Like sometimes I still find myself in a loop. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you are trying to solve a problem, whether it's a writing problem, a technical problem, and you keep doing the same thing. And you know you tried that thing, but you keep doing it and you keep getting the same results. I know it's what Einstein defined as insanity, but your body, you're just so used to doing for doing's sake that even if you're doing in the wrong direction and picking up speed, you're still going to do it. And I realized that my body has for a long time been stuck in this pattern of like doing the same thing, forcing outcomes and not getting the results that I want. So it's been a really interesting experience with the Mind First platform, where I'm telling myself, I will know what to do. I can only do what I can control in this moment. The next thing that I need to do, I trust will be revealed to me, and there is no urgency, especially with Mind First. Because, yeah, again, Mind First, sure, I say mind, but it really is about alignment. It's about being the becoming of the person that you want to be, whether it's losing weight or being sober. And that goes beyond thinking about it and doing the actions. It's about believing that you are sober. It's about believing that you are snatched, honey. It's about being that person that absolutely requires the involvement of the heart. Another interesting thing, which I kind of alluded to earlier, was that two healthy, hopefully, masculine men having this conversation. And I do think that there is a healthy amount of masculine that a woman should have, and vice versa. There is a healthy amount of feminine that a man should have. I believe Shay, your love diva, talks about this a lot. She says for men, they need to be 70% masculine, 30% feminine, energy-wise. And for women, 70% feminine, 30% masculine. And I actually do believe that it is your masculine that drives you to realize your ambitions. But I do think that there is a different way that men work to how women work. They have different optimizations. And I think for me, what I realized as I was getting more and more into my feminine energy is that I have a different kind of strength, right? My strength might not be brute force or the ability to be in beta brainwaves like all day, every day, and handle a certain amount of stress, which men do pretty naturally. My superpower is my intuition. My superpower is my connection with God. My superpower is my clairaudience or clairvoyance. Those are just different ways of how I have come to learn that men and women operate, and it makes total sense. Our chemistry is not the same, guys. Like, we have our different phases with our hormones, whether it's ovulation, luteal, and I feel this. Like, I don't even have to have someone teach this to me. I know that my strength is different at certain times of the month when I can't lift as heavy as I normally do, or where it's difficult for me to wake up, or where my gut microbiome is just doing crazy things. And that's just because we have different kinds of hormones. So it makes sense that you're not operating at the same level. And the thing is, as much as you would want to think that we're equal, I mean, we're equal because our souls are equal. Every single person is just as important as the next one, but we don't work the same, and it makes you bad or less productive or less optimal just because of the patriarchal system that we're in. We just happen to be in a man's world, I believe, the way systems are set up, and it makes sense that they thrive in this system more than we do. However, we have a different way of thriving. We can just choose not to play the game the way they do in their system at all, which is why I find teachers like Alexis, Shay, your love diva, Sprinkle Lady, does she? Shira 7. I don't know if she talks about feminine. I suppose, yeah, what she does talk about is feminine energy, like trying to survive and like in a man's world and making sure that you get what you want. I don't condone all of what she says, but I do agree with a lot of what she says. So I think, following someone like Hormozi, which is great because he's kind of the voice of a generation. Like, I think we're the same age. And so to see someone who's my age and who's really going after their goals and taking the time to leave clues, they say success leaves clues. I think that as a woman, you also need to be discerning and listen to your gut, listen to your body. Get rest. I know Jasmine's World talks about this all the time. Get rest. Rest is so important for our bodies. Again, I'm not telling you what to do, and I'm not telling you this is absolute truth, but what I've realized is that when I am pushing just from my masculine and trying to be productive and forcing it and suffering, that's when I manifest illness in my body. That's when I'm the most imbalanced. And that's when I attract feminized men in their wounded masculine. And I don't want that shit no more. I think you just have to be discerning. I think you just have to know what works for you and your body. And I think you need to listen to your body. I also think it's a privileged thing to do, because to even get to a point as a woman where you are feeling in your body in this system that we're set up to operate like men is a privilege. To pause enough and listen to your body, I think that is a privilege. To pause enough and get out of your head and into your heart, that is a privilege. But it is absolutely a privilege that you can give to yourself, and it's your choice. How has getting more into my heart impacted my life? More intuitive. I've started to attract some really amazing people into my life, and not romantically, just people who align with me. For example, one of the businesses that I'm working on, which is a new dating app, me and my partners, we pray. We pray before we go into meetings, and we pray when we leave meetings, and we talk about God all the time. I didn't think that was possible. Talk to me 2-3 years ago, I didn't think that business had anything to do with God. But then when I was in the pickle that I was in, it became very clear that yes, these difficulties were brought in to humble me to a point where I couldn't even find the answers, forget within myself, but like within other people. Like I had to go to a higher mind, as it were. And so in that regard, I'm grateful. I think obviously like health-wise, I've talked about it a little bit. I have healed diseases in my body. I feel lighter. A casting director told me a couple weeks ago that I felt lighter. And that was such a huge compliment because I am. I do really feel very much in alignment a lot of the time. In fact, when something wrong happens or when I feel bad, it's starting to become the odd feeling like, oh, what's that about? Like I'm starting to have awareness of when I am not in alignment, when I'm feeling poorly in my spirit, and I get to it really, really quickly. Whereas I feel like it used to be a very familiar state. And I sleep better. My dreams are super lucid. I almost feel also that I can read people's, not thoughts, but emotions. Like if something has gone wrong, I just find myself a lot more in tune with other people's states of being. Those were my takeaways from the interview. If you haven't seen it, go and check it out. It's actually really interesting. And I also find it interesting that of all the interviews that Tony Robbins did last week, I think he's promoting a new virtual conference or something. He did an interview with Stephen Bartlett. He did one with Lewis House, with a couple of other people, but it was the one with Alex Hormozi that stuck out. And look, it could be because Alex has a huge network of affiliate marketers. He might have reached out to them to say, hey, post this, or it just grew organically. And I don't think that that is a coincidence that that interview got the most airtime and hit people the most, because I think there is a part of us that knows intuitively that it's not just about hard work. Suffering is a jumping off point, but it's not a point of dwelling. The reason we all want to be successful in this business thing is because we want to make money. And the reason we want to make money, because we want to live these lives where we are satisfied, taking care of our families. And the reason we want those things is because we think it's going to make us happy. And so I really do wish Alex the best in helping 100,000 men make their first 100,000 and mentor them into taking care of their families. I think it's such an amazing goal. And yeah, to the next level, because we're human and that's what we're here to do. We're not going to get to the end of it. We're never going to be done. And it's all about leveling up. And it's wonderful to see someone so successful come into that realization. And it's wonderful to see that it is a heart thing, not necessarily like a head hustle and grind thing. So thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. You could completely disagree and be like, now fix. Women need to grind it out just as much as men. Yeah, just have a period. 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 Again, thank you so much for watching. This has been 2020 Fix.